Blackwood Manor stood alone, a sentinel against the dying light, its silhouette stark and unforgiving against the bruised canvas of the twilight sky. The house, once grand, now crumbling under neglect and time, peeling paint and creeping ivy. Windows like hollow eyes stared out blindly. The wind howled through the gaps, a mournful symphony. The air hung heavy with a palpable sense of dread. Locals spoke in hushed tones, their voices laced with fear. Darkness lingered, secrets whispered in the shadows. Even the bravest soul would think twice before approaching its imposing gates. Rusted and overgrown with thorns, a barrier between worlds. Sarah had always been drawn to the strange and unexplained. From a young age, she devoured ghost stories, her imagination ignited by tales of haunted houses and restless spirits. But nothing could have prepared her for the chilling reality of Blackwood Manor. She first heard whispers of the abandoned house from her grandmother, a woman who carried the weight of her own share of secrets. The stories were fragmented, veiled in warnings and shrouded in an unspoken fear that piqued Sarah's curiosity. Blackwood Manor, her grandmother would say, was a place of sorrow, a vessel for unspeakable horrors that time couldn't erase. She spoke of a family torn apart by tragedy, of a darkness that clung to the house like a shroud. Sarah, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and anticipation, decided to see for herself. She felt an inexplicable pull towards the manor, a need to unravel its mysteries and confront the darkness that lay within its heart. The news came in the form of a letter, its edges yellowed with age, the ink faded but still legible. Sarah's great-aunt, a woman she had never met, had passed away, leaving her Blackwood Manor as an inheritance. The lawyer's words echoed in her ears. "The estate is yours now, Miss Sarah, though I must warn you it's been uninhabited for decades, it's in a state of disrepair," but Sarah heard nothing beyond "Blackwood Manor is yours." A strange mix of apprehension and excitement coursed through her veins. This was it, her chance to step into one of her grandmother's stories, to experience firsthand the chilling legends of Blackwood Manor. She packed her bags, ignoring the warnings of friends and the concerned looks of her family. They couldn't understand. This wasn't just an old house, it was a portal to the past, a chance to unravel the mysteries that had haunted her family for generations. As she drove through the rusted gates, the setting sun casting long, eerie shadows across the overgrown driveway, she felt a shiver run down her spine, a sign, perhaps, of what awaited her within the dark, silent walls of Blackwood Manor. The air inside was thick with the smell of decay, a suffocating blend of dust, mildew and something else she couldn't quite place. It clung to her skin, sending a shiver down her spine. The silence was deafening, broken only by the creaking of the floorboards beneath her feet. Each footstep felt heavy, as if she were treading on centuries of sorrow. Sunlight struggled to penetrate the grime-coated windows, casting the interior in a perpetual twilight. Cobwebs draped the furniture like ghostly shrouds, and dust covered every surface. Yet, beneath the decay, Sarah could sense a lingering echo of former grandeur. Faded portraits of stern-faced men and women in elegant attire stared down from the walls, their eyes seeming to follow her every move. She wandered through darkened hallways, each room whispering forgotten stories of laughter and loss, of love and betrayal. In the grand ballroom where music once filled the air, she found a single chair overturned, as if in the midst of a sudden flight. It was an unsettling tableau, a snapshot of a life interrupted, frozen in time. Night descended upon Blackwood Manor like a shroud, enveloping the house in an oppressive darkness. Sarah, alone with the whispers of the past, found sleep impossible. Every creak of the house, every rustle of leaves outside her window, sent her heart racing. She lay in bed, her eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. The moonlight, filtering through the gaps in the curtains, painted strange, dancing patterns on the walls. Shadows seemed to writhe and shift, taking on menacing forms that sent shivers down her spine. Then, she heard it. A soft, mournful sigh, as if someone or something was grieving just beyond the veil of her senses. It seemed to emanate from the depths of the house, seeping up through the floorboards, wrapping around her like an icy hand. Fear, cold and clammy, tightened its grip on her chest. She told herself it was just the wind, playing tricks on her frayed nerves. But deep down, a primal instinct whispered a different truth. She wasn't alone in Blackwood Manor. The next morning, determined to find a rational explanation for the previous night's events, Sarah began exploring the manor with renewed determination. She ventured into the dusty attic, a cavernous space filled with forgotten relics and shrouded in an eerie silence. Sunlight streamed through cracks in the boarded-up windows, illuminating cobwebs and dust motes dancing in the air. Trunks, their leather cracked and faded, lay scattered across the floor, filled with the remnants of forgotten lives. She ran her hand over a chipped porcelain doll, its painted eyes staring vacantly into the gloom, and felt a chill travel up her arm. It was then that she noticed it, a hidden door concealed behind a tattered tapestry. Curiosity piqued, she pulled back the heavy fabric, revealing a small, dusty room. Inside, a single wooden desk sat bathed in a shaft of sunlight, a leather-bound diary resting on its surface. The diary, its pages brittle with age, was filled with elegant script, the ink faded but still legible. On the cover, etched in gold leaf, were the words, "The Diary of Elizabeth Blackwood." Sarah sat by the window, the afternoon sunlight warming her face as she carefully turned the brittle pages of Elizabeth Blackwood's diary. The words painted a vivid picture of life at Blackwood Manor over a century ago. Elizabeth, trapped in a loveless marriage, poured her heart out onto the pages. She wrote of her loneliness, fear, and growing despair. The entries became frantic, filled with cryptic messages and growing terror. "The shadows grow longer," she wrote, "and I fear what they will bring." Sarah felt a growing unease. The diary was a desperate plea for help. The mournful sighs and chilling presence were all connected to Elizabeth Blackwood. The secrets of the manor were not content to stay buried. One night, as Sarah slept, she was awakened by a cold draft. The air in the room had grown heavy, oppressive, making it difficult to breathe. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest as she sat up in bed, her eyes scanning the room, searching for the source of her unease. That's when she saw it. The antique mirror, an ornate silver-framed behemoth that had always seemed out of place in the otherwise sparsely furnished guest room, was glowing with an eerie internal light. It pulsed faintly, as if alive, drawing her gaze into its depths. As she stared into the mirror, mesmerized, she saw a figure begin to take shape in its depths. It was Elizabeth Blackwood, her face pale and drawn, her eyes wide with terror. She reached out from the mirror, her fingers scrabbling at the glass, her lips forming desperate, silent pleas. Suddenly, Sarah felt a sharp pull on her own reflection, as if an invisible force were trying to drag her into the mirror's cold embrace. She cried out, struggling against the unseen force, her heart pounding in her chest as she fought to break free from the mirror's grasp. Terror lent Sarah strength. She ripped her gaze from the mirror, breaking the spell that seemed to hold her captive. The room plunged back into darkness, the only sound her own ragged breathing. She stumbled back from the mirror, her heart still pounding in her chest, her body trembling with fear. She knew then that Elizabeth Blackwood was a prisoner in her own right, trapped within the confines of the manor, her spirit unable to find peace. Sarah had stumbled upon her desperate attempts to reach out, to warn her, to seek her help. But how could she help a ghost? The diary. Sarah remembered a passage where Elizabeth mentioned a hidden room, a place where her husband kept his most prized possessions. She had used it as a hiding place, a sanctuary from his cruelty. Perhaps there, among his belongings, lay the key to freeing Elizabeth's trapped spirit. Guided by Elizabeth's words, Sarah discovered the hidden room concealed behind a bookshelf in the library. Inside, she found a treasure trove of artifacts, old letters, legal documents, and a small locked chest tucked away in the corner. The chest, bound in iron and secured with a heavy padlock, seemed to radiate an aura of malice. As Sarah worked on the lock, she could feel Elizabeth's presence growing stronger, her despair palpable in the air around her. Finally, with a groan of rusty hinges, the chest creaked open, revealing its contents. Inside, nestled amongst yellowed parchment and dried ink, lay a beautiful silver locket, its surface engraved with the initials E.B. Sarah recognized it instantly from Elizabeth's diary entries. It was a gift from her true love, a man her husband had driven away in a jealous rage. The locket was a symbol of their forbidden love, a love that had been cruelly ripped apart. As Sarah picked up the locket, a wave of icy cold washed over her. Images flashed before her eyes. Elizabeth, young and vibrant, laughing with her lover, the same lover cast out, his heart broken. Elizabeth trapped in her loveless marriage, driven to despair. She understood then. Elizabeth wasn't haunting the manor out of malice or vengeance, but out of a desperate longing for peace, for the freedom to reunite with her lost love. Sarah knew what she had to do. With the locket clutched tightly in her hand, she went to the garden, to the very spot where Elizabeth and her lover had shared their stolen moments. As she laid the locket beneath the old oak tree, she whispered a silent prayer, a promise to reunite Elizabeth with her true love. As she turned to leave, she felt a shift in the air, a lightness that hadn't been there before. The oppressive atmosphere that had clung to the manor seemed to lift, replaced by a sense of peace that settled over the grounds like a gentle mist. Sarah knew then that Elizabeth was finally free.